The Ash Archive, Chapter 3. The knock at Theo Rusk's door waited longer than a living hand would have waited. Jonah Vale stood in the kitchen with the tape deck still turning, one finger pressed against the stop button, watching Leona raise the tire iron as if grief had finally found a practical use. 3 taps had come from the hallway. Then silence. Then the same 3 taps again, polite enough to be worse than force. "Do we answer?" Leona whispered. "We don't owe the hallway manners." Jonah took the receipt from the table. His signature waited at the bottom, dark and exact, like the paper had learned him from old claim releases and decided that was close enough to consent. Under outstanding balance, the words "one son" had stopped bleeding through the fibers. He folded the receipt and slid it into his coat. The 3rd knock came lower, nearer the lock. Leona looked toward the window. Theo's apartment was 2 floors above the tire shop. The fire escape outside had been painted shut by a landlord who liked safety in theory and invoices in practice. Jonah crossed to it, forced the latch with the flat end of a screwdriver from Theo's junk drawer, and pushed. Rain came in sideways. The door to the hallway opened behind them. No hinge sound, no boot, just a draft with the dry smell of burned folders. Leona went through the window first. Jonah followed, pulling it down until only a black gap remained. Through that gap, he saw the apartment lights dim, then brighten around a figure standing just inside the door. Not a man, not anything theatrical enough to make fear simple. A clerk's gray sleeve, a wet cuff, a hand holding a stamped form. The form slid across Theo's kitchen table by itself, stopped beside the tape deck, and waited for the room to acknowledge it. Jonah climbed down into the alley with rain on his neck and ash in his mouth. They reached the Nightjar Diner before dawn. It was not open, but the cook on prep shift knew Jonah from enough bad mornings to unlock the side door without questions. He gave them the back booth and coffee that had not yet become bitter. Leona had not spoken for 8 blocks. When she finally did, her voice had the flat precision of someone reading from an autopsy. Theo said it was staffed. I heard him. That thing came for the balance. Jonah set the cassette tapes in a line on the table. 3 labels. Mercy Street, Box 12, Do Not Play Alone. Then we changed the account. Leona gave him a look. That sounded almost like a plan. It is an accounting fraud with rain on it. Plans are allowed. She almost smiled. It failed, but the attempt counted. The diner's old wall clock ticked above the pie case. Every 3rd tick came too late. Jonah opened Theo's city form again, the one signed by Gerald Mott 6 months after the annex burned. Mott's signature had always bothered him. It was too round, too practiced, the hand of a man who had learned to make denial look friendly. During Jonah's last year at the Claims Bureau, Mott could turn a death revision into a budget note and then ask where everyone wanted lunch. The transfer line read residual confession material. The receiving department was blank. Jonah held the paper up against the window where early light was turning the rain silver. A watermark appeared through the fibers. Basement disposition unit. Below it, almost invisible, was a routing code. BDU 611 Mercer, night intake. 611 Mercer, Leona said. That's not the annex. No. Jonah lowered the page. It's the old Claims Bureau. The building at 611 Mercer had once been where citizens went to prove that the city had ruined them in a compensable way. Flooded apartments, bad demolitions, wrongful towing that became wrongful eviction because the wrong car held the only spare key. Jonah had worked there before it closed, before the Bureau moved uptown and left the lower floors to mold in budget silence. Mercy Street cases had passed through his desk as summaries, never as files. That was the rule he had believed. He called the one person who could make that rule untrue. Gerald Mott answered on the fifth ring, breathing as if he had been awake for hours and pretending otherwise. "Jonah," Mott said, "this is early." "Theo Rusk is dead." A pause. "I read that." "The annex still has a desk." Rain scratched at the diner glass. Leona watched Jonah instead of the street. Mott exhaled. "You should give whatever you found to the police." "Which police? The ones who asked Leona where she heard my name?" "You always did enjoy making help difficult." "I found your signature on a transfer order for a confession material." This pause lasted longer. When Mott spoke again, the friendly roundness had left him. "Burn it." "Paper keeps coming back in this case." "Then drown it." "What did Mercy Street owe?" Mott said nothing. "My mother warned me not to pay the fee," Jonah said. "You want to tell me why?" The line crackled. For 1 second, Jonah thought the call had failed. Then under the static came a second voice. "Female, far away. Do not trade memory for proof." Jonah closed his eyes. Mott whispered, "You heard that?" "Yes." "Then you're already on the ledger." The call ended. Leona wrapped both hands around her coffee. "The Claims Bureau." "Yes. You said you worked there." "I processed intake." "For Mercy Street?" He wanted to answer quickly. No, never. I would remember. The wanting made the answer useless. They went to 611 Mercer after the morning clerks took over the streets. The old claims building sat between a bail bonds office and a closed camera shop. 3 stories of municipal brick with plywood over the first floor windows. Someone had scraped the city seal off the door, but its outline remained, a cleaner circle in the grime. Jonah's old badge opened the rear entrance. "You kept it?" Leona asked. "Bad habit." "Useful habit." Inside, the air was colder than outside. Dust lay over the reception counter except for one clean rectangle where a ledger had recently rested. Jonah touched the space and found a wet edge, as if the book had sweated into the wood. The basement stairs were behind a locked gate. Theo's A12 key opened it. That was becoming less surprising and more expensive. Below, the claims archive had been stripped of cabinets, phones, and ceiling tiles. Only the intake windows remained, 3 glass slots set into a concrete wall. Behind the middle slot, a banker box sat under a desk lamp with no cord. The lamp was on. Leona stayed by the gate with the tire iron. Jonah went to the window and read the label on the box. Mercy Street. Unpaid relocations. Personal effects. Inside were small things sealed in evidence bags, a bus pass, a house key, a child's hair ribbon, a diner receipt. An old photograph of a woman with Jonah's eyes standing beside Eleanor Rusk on a sidewalk that no longer existed. His mother had not left alone. She had left with Jonah's mother. The city had turned 2 women into one error because one death was easier to close than 2 disappearances. Jonah found the confession item at the bottom, a cassette in a clear sleeve, label typed instead of handwritten. Elena Rusk, Bekanter, Ellis Vale, joint statement. Leona saw his face. Ellis Vale? My mother. The desk lamp flickered. At the intake window, a receipt slid through the slot. Requester, Jonah Vale. Requested file, joint statement. Fee required, first memory of Ellis Vale. Under that, the form had already printed 2 boxes, pay, close case. Jonah stared at the cassette. Evidence first. Objects, contradictions, sequence. Rules for staying sane until sanity became a luxury. Leona said softly, "We can leave." He thought of Theo in the flood channel, Elena's warning, Mott saying burn it, the city taking memory to balance its debt accounts. Then he picked up the receipt and checked neither box. In the blank space beneath them, he wrote a third option in his own hand. witnessed under protest. The basement lights went out. The tape deck behind the glass clicked on by itself. His mother's voice filled the dark, calm and close enough to hurt. "Jonah," Ellis Vale said, "if you can hear this, then they have already started charging you for the truth."